Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! What a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
I was going to sing the song Final Countdown by Europa, but who would want to listen to a podcast that's hosted by some dumbass who sings stupid made-up songs with invented lyrics? This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. It's the final countdown. It's the final countdown. It's the season. It's here. Which means all the fun stuff is over and now the football starts. But yes, the window slammed shut. The season is here. It's time. The Arsenal is back. All the excitement, all the joy, Wait, sorry, no. Those are Manchester City's notes. Okay, let me put those down. All the disappointment, all the misery, all the terrible defending. No, I kid. It's going to be totally different. It's going to be all change. We've just had an exciting window slam shut. We're going to talk about that. We're going to make predictions. But before we do that, we have 2 shirt winners. That's right. 2 people, 1 shirts. We're going to send you whatever Arsenal shirt you want. It has to be an Arsenal shirt. Can't pick another team. So, Alexander Yeoman, I have your email. I will be emailing you. Imagine giving me your email. I'm going to email you, Alexander Yeoman, because you have won a shirt. You were correct. I predicted Arsenal 10, Newcastle 0. And Arvid Onol Matson. You have won as well, and I will be emailing you. I also have your email. Be afraid, be very afraid. You also predicted 10-9 to the Arsenal, which is acceptable because I've been kind of vacillating between the two, to be fair. So, I'll email both of you. If you did not win, it is Arvid and Alexander's fault, and please send all the hate to them and abuse and whatnot, but I'm not giving you their email, so you have to go search them down somewhere else. It can be like that movie with, what's his name? What's the one where his daughter gets snatched and then he goes and gets revenge?
Taken.
It'll be like Taken, only over an Arsenal shirt. In any event, let's get started. The voice you just heard there, the sexy voice, the man who can make a Wolverine purr. His name is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at Clive PAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Paul's on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo!
Tim's on Twitter at Soberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
And guess who? Scott is down the line with the data that matters. Not all this subjective opinion crap, but we're going to do the subjective opinion crap. And I am going to start with the man who demanded, in fact, begged to be first up, and that is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Damn it.
Let's start with this. Before we get into the actual football, the window has slammed shut. It was an absolutely crazy transfer window. Louise on the final day, Tierney on the final day, Iwobi going out, although at time of recording, that maybe is still up in the air. And Kenny alone on Leeds.
It's actually just been announced.
It's just been announced. Breaking news. Breaking news. It's just been announced. Iwobi is an Everton player. For better or worse, let's do this. Let's get your American style A through F letter grade on the window that was.
You know me, I'm always over optimistic. I would give it a B.
A B. That's over optimistic.
Bit negative, Clive.
Gosh,
okay.
You can find him on at Negative Gooner on Twitter. B. Okay.
What's Raul need to do for you, Clive? Just
rub and tug, I guess. Reach around. What? So, all right. Obviously,
I thought a B was good. I'll be happy with a few B's in my life.
I said B as well.
You don't get into Princeton getting B's, my friends. So it's the grade inflation that works for me. No, it's all kidding aside. I mean, so for you, Clive, the B based presumably on the fact that David Luiz is not Dayot Upamecano.
I just think there were some situations, not what we did, but maybe how things happen with the Koscielny situation, maybe. And I'm not sure that's really a fair reflection, but I just found that whole situation disappointing from everyone's angles. But I'm also glad that Arsenal stood up and got some money back. And in the end, I thought it would cost us tens of millions of pounds. But actually, if you think about Christian Bielik going and Koscielny going, and we've got David Luiz in place, one player didn't really play for us, and the other one forced his way out of the club to a point where we couldn't get much for him. So the whole market knew we were vulnerable. We had no leverage. But we still managed to get a younger centre-half with as much experience, as, maybe more leadership qualities, and somebody that has a playing style which I think will really suit this team. And so we've recovered really well from that situation. So maybe I'm saying it. I think B's right. I think the only reason it's right is because we didn't have another first 11 centre-half. So if there was somebody else that was just a little bit younger, that's really a first 11 potential centre-half in the building. But we just have to wait for that, and we have to wait for that till next year. And I think we will go again next summer with the other centre-half to be the long-term partner potentially. But that's just my thoughts. We'll see how Holding goes this year and see if he is that other player to partner Saliba over the medium to long term. So very pleased with the Ceballos signing. I'm really pleased with that. I think we're all going to like him. I think we recognise that player, and I think we'll all remember as soon as we get a good chance to see him over a longer period just how much we missed that player in our centre midfield. We used to have loads of them, and we've got nobody like him. So I think he'll be interesting. And I think, we've done all right. I think Tierney, although I was against that signing, I don't like being bullied from Celtic's point of view and the injury suspicions. As soon as he's got the shirt on, all that goes away. He starts to look at the highlight videos with a different light. And I'm actually quite excited by him. I think he could be a very special talent, and I think a player that hopefully we'll all get to love over the next few years. So yeah, I could still go B, but if you ask me from a how we operate point of view, from a club perspective, I'd almost go A, because I'm just pleased we're back to being a sensible, clever club again.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, we're players again. We're out there, and we're making the hard decisions, selling and loaning players. We're making the hard decisions, spending the money to buy players. On our Patreon transfer window podcast that we just published, actually, called Deadline Denouement, which I thought was a clever play on words, but probably no one else does. We already did this, but you know what? As a little free teaser, Tim, let's wrap up this section with you and Paul giving your letter grades too, and just a quick explainer why. What do you give us for the window? You already teased it by assuaging Clive's guilt and saying a B.
Yeah, I said B for similar reasons that, we got a centre-half, but perhaps not the kind of the 25-year-old top-tier centre-half, which I think, as Clive says, we'll go for again next year. So I'm fairly happy with Luiz as an interim. There's still stuff to do. There's still, I think, a backup right back, a stronger backup goalkeeper. There's guys we haven't managed to shift yet, albeit we could shift some of them. So I'll give it a B, like a strong B. But put it this way, I would have taken it if you'd have told me that this was going to happen, names and all, in late May. I think I'd have been relatively happy. So yeah, strong B, and enthused because I think Arsenal prioritised the right areas. Like I said, it's more than one window's work, albeit I think they kind of made that situation for themselves by completely writing off January, which I never understood why they did that. There's so much work to do that I don't think they can afford to just write off windows like that. But I think they've gone for the right profile of player in the positions where we needed them the most. And that even if all of the signings turn out to be massive flops, I can follow the logic of every move. And I don't think you can ask for much more than that at this stage.
Yeah, you know what it is? Process, right? We always talk about this, right? Results are great, but results through bad process, hard to repeat. Results through good process, easier to repeat. And I think the process is good right now, or at least it looks like it's trend. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, shall I give you a little example of that? So
I would love one,
Danny Welbeck turned out to be a good signing, right? Signed absolutely chaotically just because he happened to be at Colney with England on deadline day, and because we were tired of pushing Wenger to go for a striker. Turned out to be a perfectly decent signing. Signed Lucas Perez in very slightly similar circumstances because it was getting near the deadline and the powers that be were trying to push Arsene Wenger to please buy another forward, and that didn't work because, like you say, that's not good process. So yeah.
Yeah, well said. All right, so Paul, before we get into the previewing part of the season preview podcast, let's finish reviewing the window. Your letter grade and rationale?
Well, we're an A, easily an A for me. Maybe verging on A+.
Not if you're glass half empty, negative Nelly, Clive, or Tim, but for you and I, clearly.
Yeah, clearly. So you look at what Emery needed to play the way he wants to play. I mean, Pepe as a right winger, I mean, fuck me. Wasn't seeing that before the window started. And we diced with the devil with playing around with the name of Fraser. So, yeah, that'll get you an A from me straight off. Then you got Tierney left back, which I think a player like that is essential for our style. Sabalas in midfield, lovely. We got who else? David Luiz, centre back. Given where we're at in terms of our budget, I mean, he's a big profile player. When he's great, and he'll be a mad bastard alongside Socrates. So I'm excited about that. And Emery knows the guy. They had at least one season together. Edu, Brazilian angle, hopefully keep everything in check and keep the communication open. So hopefully we'll keep that one bolted down, and that'll be a net significant positive, though it could go tits up. And then on the other hand, you got Martinelli coming in and Saliba coming in. So there's your 6 signings in a window in which we may not have had 45 million exactly, but we had a very limited budget, and we've had one. So where I'd score us on the negative would be at the outgoings. But if I just look at the positives and how we need to play and the positions we needed to fill, fair fucks to Raul, that's easily an A for me. The outgoings, that's another story.
Yeah. All right. Well, good enough. I will simply say that obviously I saw it as an A+, and anybody who sees it as less than that needs to just back the team, for God's sakes. All right, let's get into it. So now we're going to look ahead, and the first thing I want to do is just, the words come out of my mouth, but they don't actually mean anything. Because I was about to say is now I want to look ahead. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what we saw during preseason. But that's just how it goes around here. Clive.
Yo.
I want you to give me something. So, and again, let's try to keep these sharp. We'll keep them concise because we've got a lot to get through. But I want you to pick something from preseason that you think will wind up meaning nothing, and something from preseason that you think will wind up being real. So, it was a busy preseason. We played some prestige friendlies. There was a lot to get excited about. But often the things we see in preseason don't matter. So for you, a something and a nothing. What's your nothing? What's your something?
The nothing will be Ainsley Maitland-Niles' own goal. I think it'll mean nothing. And I think there's lots of silly reactions to that. So I think it'll be fine this season. I look forward to seeing that develop. And the something has got to be the emergence of Joe Willock.
Yeah, I think he looks spectacular. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just think he just opens up so many different things, and I think he gives us a level of resilience and go forward. And I like what he is. I like what he can be. I like his approach to getting into Arsenal's first team. You've got to be a special kid to break into a top 6 Premiership team. And you just got to be special to go all the way through the club and get to where he's getting. And it's really exciting to see that happen. It's almost an impossibility these days. And we've got something there that's special. There's rumours of Bayern Munich already looking at him. That tells you what you need to know. So I'm really hoping that is going to be something very, very big.
Yeah, I think you probably just stolen everyone's, but let's go over to Tim for a second. What's your something? And I know you are a keen preseason observer, but what is your something that will mean something from preseason and your nothing?
I'm a preseason nihilist. It all means nothing. No, I'll play ball.
Close to right.
So the nothing, I'm going to slightly cheat because it's kind of already happened. And Eddie Nketiah, because he started preseason quite well. Not sure he finished it brilliantly, but he's gone out on loan anyway. So those kind of promising goals, that doesn't mean it means nothing, because obviously he's going to go to Leeds and have his loan spell there. But to be honest, I just don't quite think Nketiah is Arsenal level. And I think this time next year we'll probably sell him, but hopefully for a good fee, and he'll have a good career. The something for me is Aubameyang, and that's probably a little bit that's probably a bit Captain Obvious, but I think basically we're gonna and to be fair, actually Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang have quite a good partnership, but I think effectively we've swapped Mkhitaryan and Iwobi for Nicolas Pepe. And I think that's going to be significant. So, he scored 31 goals last season anyway, so I'm not sure how much he can improve on that. But I think Aubameyang, he's in his He's in his prime years. I think Aubameyang's going to have another blinding season, and because Liverpool had all of their forwards were away this summer, I think Aubameyang's going to take the Golden Boot outright.
You know, if
I agree with that.
if I had the text transcript of this pod, I could just hit Control X and Control V or Command X, Command V, depending what computer you're using, and that would be my answer. But sadly, I can't. But Paul, maybe you could say something, have people forget what Tim just said, and then I could just say what Tim said. So, what's your something from preseason and nothing from preseason?
All right, so something for preseason that will mean nothing. Laurent Koscielny going on strike. There's a big fucking meltdown about it. I always thought we'd just brush it aside as we went along. It will. I think we've probably reached the point where we got it tidied up just before TDD, which is probably good timing when things go well and terrible timings when things go badly. So I think we'll move forward. It's become an opportunity. We've swapped in Luis for just a few million quid and just a little bit more money, but no more money than Chelsea were paying him, and they should know what they had. They had all the stats and the facts and the fitness stuff on Luis. So I think that's a nice little swapperoo and a physically sound player. So that's the something that will mean nothing. And the something that will mean something.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's the something I hope means something, which is the playing out from the back, but we needed a player to make that happen. Oh, David Luiz makes another entrance into my my profile. Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see if he's the guy who actually allows us to do what we did in preseason, which is a whole other way. We did start last season, the first few games. I mean, we had that wondrous goal playing out from the back that we scored early on against Fulham. So there were games where we were trying to do that a lot, and then we kind of dropped off it a little. So I hope that we now have the players in midfield, in particular, David Luiz, and a couple of good and confident wing backs, full backs between Maitland-Niles, who's been spinning those balls up the wing all preseason, Bellerin, of course, and Tierney, who can really help us play out from the back.
Yeah. So I have a couple ways I'm going to go with this. I almost want to, just to be argumentative, say that something that will be nothing is Willock. Not because I don't think he's a superstar in the making, but because I look at the team, and unless the coach really trusts him, I'm still curious to see where the playing time is. But instead, I'm going to say the thing that'll be nothing is Aubameyang on the right. He looked fantastic there. But we did sign Pepe. He is a right-sided winger. I don't think that we will move Pepe to accommodate Oba on the right. So I think that his phenomenal performances on the right this summer, while they were fun to watch, will ultimately mean nothing. I think that something that means something is the fact that we basically didn't play the back three towards the tail end of the preseason. I think we will strive to be a back four team. I think the acquisition of Tierney tells you that. I think Bellerin's return will hasten that. We might see the back three rear its head early in the season when neither Tierney nor Bellerin are available. But when they become available, and hopefully that's for a lot of this season, I think we will move away from the back three in a more permanent way and play back four as much as possible. So now you disagree.
Oh, of course I do.
Argue. Come on. That's what what are we here for if not to call each other idiots?
Well, you see, I just don't.
You're an idiot.
I don't know why you're concerned about it. There are other teams in the
concerned. I said I don't.
Back three is not the devil. It's all about the balance, right? The other manager I like in the league, Hassan Tyler, he plays a back three. Can you imagine a front three with Pepe and Aubameyang, just in a 3-4-2-1 behind Lacazette, spinning in there, creating, going away from home with that level of transition, with a good four across the middle. There's so much exciting options. I don't know why we would limit ourselves to playing a similar way each time. I love the variation, and I don't think it's dead. I think it suits Chambers. It will suit Holding as he's coming back. And we've got probably one of the best back three centre-backs just arrived at our club. So I think we could see a different style of back three that's way more mature and advanced to the previous style that we had. So leave your mind open, mate. Let's
Sure.
see what happens.
If we're going to do that, Clive, and it's not that my mind's closed to it, my biggest argument with the back three has been and continues to be ball progression and connecting the attack to the midfield, and Ceballos maybe unlocks that because it worked last season with Ramsey. Yeah, go ahead.
You took the words out of my mouth. It's just different players. And Randy did it his way by overloading and breaking. And then suddenly he appears in areas where people had to adjust to him. Ceballos can carry the ball there. He can start ahead. And he can get it and he can connect things.
And so can Willock, by the way, if he was trusted with it.
Absolutely. He can carry and he can arrive. I just think we've got some very exciting playing options which take away your concerns about the system. It's always how you play it and the players within it and the messages they're given before they go out. If they're given certain messages and they have the ability to carry it out, it looks great. I've not forgotten us slapping Chelsea in the FA Cup final with that same system, and it was brilliant. And so there are options out there, and I just think it's I wouldn't close my mind to it. I
agree. If we use our more mobile midfield options that we have now, a guy like Ceballos and maybe Torreira or Guendouzi and Ceballos, something like that, with a 3-4-2-1, and put Lacazette in as a false nine with Oba and Pepe running the channels, then that definitely looks better than what we saw last season. But let's move on and do this. This next section could take a lot of time if we are verbose, so we will do our best to be terse, which is the dictionary antonym for verbose, it says here. We're going to letter grade each department of the squad. Okay? Again, American style letter grade A through F. Tim, I'll start with you. Let's just zip, and one comment for each is fine. Let's just zip through goalkeepers real quick. What's your letter grade for goalkeepers?
Yep. B-. I want to see Leno, had a great spell of form in spring. I want to see him maintain that. The stats suggest that's an outlier. I would like a stronger backup than Martinez, so I'll wait and see, but B-.
Paul?
A-. I mean, Leno continues to be look the same player, so I think he's feeling it, and we'll go into this season feeling even better selves. So I'm sticking with an A-.
I think it's fair to say that your goalkeeping group is really graded based on your starting goalkeeper, right? Because you don't have to use your backup goalkeeper if you don't want. So while I think Martinez has to prove himself, the one that matters is Leno. I think he's an A- goalkeeper with the potential to be better, but we also know he was maybe below an A- keeper before he arrived. So he could regress. I hope he won't. If he doesn't, I think it's an A-. Clive, your grade for the goalkeepers?
Yeah, I'll go B+, A-. I think stylistically we don't have to change our style anymore. When we go to the backup keeper in Czech, I felt we were a different team, and teams played us differently. I think Martinez is comfortable. He wants to play. He plays quickly. He's got good size about him. He's got some edges that need to polish off. We saw that in pre-season. Leno, I just think he's got the strut. He's decided, I've arrived. I'm now 26. This is my show. Give me number one shirt. It's all over for you lot now. Now you're gonna have to watch me. I hope he'll continue. I hope I'm correct and we don't see that regression, but I don't see it in the post at all. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, if the defense is even nominally better in front of him, that should help. I'll stay with you, Clive. Let's do fullbacks. So basically, Maitland-Niles, Bellerin, Tierney, Nacho, Kolasinac. Your letter grade for that group?
I will go B- because there's too many unknowns. Tierney, although we're excited about, we don't know, but we think we're going to be okay. Bellerin, we do know, but we can't. We have to remember he's been out for 9 months. It's going to take at least 2 or 3 to get back to anything. Kalashnik, we know that he is a wing back, and in his box he rests defensively, and things happen around him. He lets it happen. Monreal, he looked quite good in pre-season actually, but he's 106 and his body could break down any minute. And Maitland-Niles, although I'm a fan, not everyone is, and I think he needs a string of good games, because I feel confidence-wise, I just feel he's on the edge. He can go one of 2 ways. He could drop or he could explode. And I do think, as fans, we really hold that, and I think he's a sensitive boy, so he's one to watch, but I'm hopeful he's going to explode.
Yeah. Well, Tim, hoping that nobody explodes, personally, just me. What letter grade do you give that department?
I'm going to say B. On paper, that's no. I think that's about right. Really like Bellerin, but there are weaknesses he has to iron out. Don't know enough about Tierney yet, but as we discussed on the patrons pod, hopefully the two of them together means that we can go to the back four more. Nacho I've always liked, but he's getting on in years now. Kolasinac I don't really like, even at left wing back, and Maitland-Niles I'm just not sold on. I'm happy to have him as a backup right back, but for him to play more than a few games there, I'm not massively sold on it, so I'll give that a B.
The interesting thing, Tim, is for me, the reason why this is hard to grade is there's a scenario where Tierney and Bellerin are an A-plus fullback combination that rivals the best in the league.
Yeah.
But it's so unknown how much they'll be available, how quickly they'll be ready to play regularly and at a high level, that I agree with you. They get dinged for that. Paul, are you dinging them for their unavailability, or are you going to give them credit for their potential?
Yeah, you just peed all over my answer, really. I thought I was going to say
it
something
felt so
vaguely
good. So I've been
different.
holding it in. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. Can't keep it in. So
I do the singing around here. We agreed.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah. If I'm singing, you can't be. You could do harmony. We got a couple of A players on either wing. We got a couple of B players, and then we got Nacho, who is kind of in and out of centre back, three at the back, or left back. So it's hard to ding him too bad in our overall score. So I think we're B-ish, but there's just too many unknowns. If we knew what we needed to know and everybody was fit and strong and could play most of the games, I think we're close to an A-, but too many unknowns with our two A-ish full backs there, Tierney and Bellerin. So, but it's not average is the problem. I think we had that conversation on the Patreon pod. It's not exactly average. It's a really interesting mix of some A players, some Bs, and some unknowns. So we'll see.
Yeah, well said. All right, so let's get to the painful part real quick. And since I think it's more fun when everybody gets their chance to be first at picking this stuff, I'll start with you, Paul. We'll go back the other way. Your letter grade for the center backs. Just to read them out: David Luiz, Socrates, Mustafi, Mustafi's probably going, but let's just list them. Mustafi, Chambers, Holding, and maybe Nacho in that group potentially. That might be more of his role this season. What's your letter grade there?
Yeah, as an overall B. As a window for our defense, maybe a B+, because I think we ended on a bit of a high given our budget. Again, that sounds like we have a lot of average centre backs, and I think we have some shits, some unknowns, and they're not shits, but they're shit.
Yeah.
And we maybe have a pairing that could really rock if it takes off and lives up to its potential when we get the two mad hard bastards, Socrates and Luis playing together. But on the average, a B.
Yeah. All right. I think that's kind of optimistic. For me personally, I think this is like a C-, but up from an F. And when you go from an F to a C-, it's improvement. And improvement was what we had to do. Tim, for you, maybe not just the letter grade, but the letter grade you think we're improving from, or if you think we're improving at all.
So I probably won't go quite as low as F because I think there are other issues around our defending that aren't all about the quality of the centre halves. But I'd agree with the C. I think Socrates is about a B- kind of centre half. Maybe David Luiz is as well. How they gel will be crucial. Mustafi is quite low on that scale. Chambers, I'd be happy with Chambers as like a fourth choice. I don't really think he'll ever aspire to any more than that. Mavropanos, I don't think he'll be here from the end of the window. So yeah, I think I tentatively agree. I think we've probably gone from an E to a C, maybe a C-.
Yeah. And that's really it. Clive, I don't think anyone is ready to put this defensive unit in the Pantheon, but they didn't have to be in the Pantheon. They just had to be better. So what's your letter grade? Do you think we improved?
we slightly improved, but only until the first Rickett goal goes in that costs us points, and we're going to think actually we're exactly the same place. Koscielny had a tough year last year. Excuse me, a tough year last year, and basically he was limping through games, so he was desperately unfit during games. So I'm hoping that Luiz is an uptick from that. He's slightly younger and he's fitter, and he brings a different way of defending. He's a cuter defender. I think he's smarter. I think he's less dramatic. So I'm hoping for a slight uptick there. Mustafi's dropped completely away. We know that. And I got to say, you know me, I've criticised Chambers in a fun way, but I watched him, and I'm watching him, and I see a player that's really trying hard. He's quicker than Mustafi. He's trying to offer a level of assurance back there. I can never kill a player that's absolutely giving it everything. He just gives me the feeling that he really wants to make it work. I think in the end his talent's got a limit, and so I think it's just gonna happen. But I appreciate what he's trying to do, and Holding's an unknown, so I would go C. But in a year's time, that could be a different grade based on the development of Chambers and Holding in particular, and how Luiz settles in. But at the moment, it's a C.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fine. I could get more annoyed at the defense if I really started to dig into it, but I think we have a pairing in Socrates and Luiz that, at least for right now, I mean, maybe this winds up being madness, but I feel like it's maybe okay. And I think when Holding comes back, it's better. I really wish that in Holding, Bellerin, and Tierney, we didn't have three pretty important players for our season who are all coming back from fairly long-term injuries, just because you worry about how often they'll be able to play. But c'est la vie. Sticking with you, Clive.
Yep.
Let's do the midfield, and I'll read out some of the names. Xhaka,
Okay.
Willock, Torreira, Guendouzi, Ceballos, and you could throw Ozil into that group if you wanted. I think loosely, depending on how you want to allocate, but that's the midfield group essentially. What's your letter grade?
This is a B+ for me. I just like the energy that's just suddenly gone in there. And the players that came last year were their first season. They were unknown to us, really. I think they're going to be better this year, and I think they're going to feel more senior. Willock, he's come out of the sky. We know what he's gonna bring, so he won't be run off the pitch. That's for sure. Ceballos, I like the bits I've seen. I think he had some Wenger-style Arsenal quality into the centre midfield. Did you have Mkhitaryan there? Well, you leave him as a forward. But in general, Ozil, Mkhitaryan, Ozil, we know what he's going to get. Home games, bottom half, I'm the man. Away games, we now have real options, and he should not be embarrassed to sit on the bench, because we have real options that can do some things that he can't do, and he should be accepting that. And as they all should, if there's somebody who can do a job better than you, you sit down and wait for your time and try to do the job better than them. And that's what I'd like to see, rather than feeling pressured in having to pick certain players because of their status and waste bracket. So I give that a B+, and I can't wait to see that all come together and develop over the season.
Well, I think the midfield is one of those issues, Tim, where, again, our letter grade is heavily influenced by players that we're sort of projecting, right? Ceballos, Willock, Guendouzi, even to some extent. There's a lot of projection inherent in our rating of this, but I'd be curious to sort of see where you see it landing.
So, yeah, you're right. That's exactly it. There's quite a bit of projection there. I'm going to go with a B because I like what we've done here. I can follow what we've done. Now, if we start playing midfield threes with Xhaka and Ozil, that comes down for me. That is not physically, that is not sufficient for the Premier League and what it is in 2019. That's Windows 7 stuff. That does not belong in this decade, and in this iteration of the Premier League. We can't do that anymore. So I like what we've done in terms of, I like Torreira, I like Guendouzi, I like the look of, or at least what I've read about Ceballos, I like Willock. I think these are modern 21st century midfielders, and we desperately needed that in midfield. We needed an environment upgrade. So I can follow the logic there. So, but like you say, I'm wish casting here, because I'm talking about, you know, two midfielders who've, well, Willock's started one Premier League game. Ceballos hasn't started one yet. You know, Torreira and Guendouzi have had a season apiece. So that, you know, there's a lot of wish casting there, and, you know, Xhaka's still there. He's going to play a lot of games. And, you know, we all know he has good points and bad points. Ditto Ozil. So yeah, it's a B. I hope that can go up into the A's, but I mean, last season I probably would have given it a C, to be honest. So yeah.
I mean, it's a really tough one to rank again, Paul, because on paper I can see how it could be excellent, but like, I also think Ceballos is our best midfielder, and I know nothing about him. So, like, you know, it is a tricky one. Like, if you told me right now that Joe Willock was going to be named Premier League Player of the Season, I'd believe you. You know, it's like everything is bright and shiny and happy at this stage of the season to some extent, but like, I think part of that is because we have players who we haven't seen enough to be totally jaded on them. So, putting your thinking cap on here, how do you grade the midfield, given that we don't have a ton of information, frankly?
Yeah, well, we're coming from where we came from, so I'm going with a B+, and my reasons are, I'm going to assume that Emery is maybe not in month 1 or 2, but soon enough, brutal enough to make the right choices. And, you know, I still have an open mind on Xhaka with a new partner. Maybe you can have some more legs, but I think we're going to need all sorts of other combinations. Tim makes a great point on our side having both Xhaka and Ozil. Ozil does seem more revitalized, more energized, but still, there's going to be a lack of physicality, energy, and speed in a lot of lineups if they play a lot of games. So I think you kind of need some 2020 hindsight to work out who's going to get all the minutes, and that really determines. We have the players here for this to be a B+ midfield, and I'm hoping the manager will make the tough choices when the combos play out, and we see that Ceballos and Willock are significant players for us in the midfield and change what we can do, and that their minutes shoot up, and we make some more pragmatic choices, dialing back some other players. So this has the potential to be a B+ midfield, depending on who the A cast and the B cast is. So I'm going B+.
Well explained. Yeah, I think I'm just going to punt and call it a B. Just move on, because I have no idea. Like I said, I mean, I could see a scenario where you could put a really interesting midfield of Torreira, Guendouzi, and Ceballos on the field, and like, I don't totally know what Torreira is yet, and I don't totally know what Guendouzi is yet, and I really have no idea what Ceballos is. So, like, in my mind, that could be a really interesting midfield, and it could fail massively. It's just going to take us some time to figure that out. And we also have to be patient, because Ceballos might need some time to bed in. Torreira had no preseason. Guendouzi's just back, so that complicates it as well. Let's get to the part of the pitch that gets a little more interesting for everyone, I think, and that is the forwards and the strikers. So I think the best thing to do here is lump it all together. I was going to break it up into strikers and forwards, but in trying to do that, it gets complicated. So let's just say Pepe, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, Martinelli, Nelson, Saka. Okay, Tim, let's just lump them all together. Or should we separate them? I mean, if we just put the strikers on their own, they're A+. I mean, how do you want to do it?
Yeah, I feel like separating them for that reason, because I do think that
they'll grade inflate the forwards. All right, so let's do this. We'll all just give the strikers an A+. We're not even going to debate them. We're going to skip it. We agreed? Everyone co-sign? The strikers are an A+?
Yeah.
Okay, so Tim, the forwards, Mkhitaryan, you can put Ozil in the group if you want. Nelson, Saka, Martinelli, Pepe.
Right, so I kind of mentioned Ozil in the midfield, and I think that's where he'll play mainly, so I'll leave him out of this. So this one, again, there's a lot of wish casting, because I really like the look of Saka. I like everything I've seen of him. I'm kind of less sold on Nelson. I I just haven't seen with my own eyes enough from Reece Nelson yet. Mkhitaryan, I think, will continue to be Mkhitaryan. He'll be really, really inconsistent, and you'll get 2 or 3 good games and 2 or 3 terrible games from him. Pepe, that's kind of an unknown quantity, but I'm going to say that he's going to be really good, not least because he's exactly what we need. So overall, I would give this maybe a B-. Not least as well because we discussed this on the Patreon pod about Iwobi, and on balance I think it's probably the right decision to sell, but it does leave us with a little bit of a lack of genuine left-sided options. We're very right side heavy, and I think that's a slight issue because Nelson prefers the right, Mkhitaryan prefers the right, Pepe prefers the right. The cupboard on the left suddenly looks a little bit bare. So I'm going to go B- here. I would go lower. Obviously, were it not for Pepe, potentially brings that average up. And, had he played a few games, he might have brought it up even more. But I still think we've got some doubts here. Maybe not in the absolute first 11, but maybe in the squad, this is an area that could still stand to get a little bit stronger, unless, of course, the likes of Saka and Nelson, like if both Saka and Nelson, or if 2 of Saka, Nelson, and Martinelli really come through, then fine. But that hasn't happened yet, so I can't grade on that basis.
You know what the problem is, Tim? So, like, the reason why I struggled to take the strikers out of evaluating this group is I think Emery will put both Oba and Laka on the pitch a lot. I think they'll play together a lot. I think that will be his preference, meaning only one of the forwards will ever be playing as long as those 2 are fit and for any game that really matters. When you look at that forward group that you listed as only needing one of them on the pitch at any given time, they feel a lot stronger, right? Because it's Pepe. And then everybody behind Pepe is the backup. If you think Oba or Laka will start alone and the other will be on the bench, then you need 2 of them on the pitch at any given time, and that makes it feel weaker. So, to me, if you just told me that in 30 games this season in the Premier League, Aubameyang and Lacazette will start together, I would say we have an A- set of forwards. If you told me that they would start together 15 games this season, I'd say we have a B- set of forwards because the second guy on the pitch is a bit of an unknown, if that makes sense. I think as long as only one of those guys is playing, you're getting someone pretty good. Clive, how do you rate that forward line? And does what I said make any sense, or is it totally incomprehensible?
I hear what you're saying. I think you might be slightly overthinking it. I just
me?
think,
What? Never.
I think I can't wait to see this forward line, and I just get this feeling they can't wait to play together. And I can't wait to see how they get deployed. I'm not remotely concerned if all 3 of them play, 2 of them play. There's so many games, and there's so many half games. You remember how many times Lacazette came on at half-time at the start of last year, and they changed it at half-time? What I do like about these younger players, they can end games to a level of intensity. They can bring speed. Also, they can bring... I've said this a couple of times now. They bring defensive intensity. So if we're away somewhere and we bring on Saka and Nelson like we did against Bayern Munich, they can hold their sides defensively, yet they can still spring. They've both played time at fullback, wing-back, and I think they're going to be really important on completing games in the Premier League and starting games in Europe and really having that responsibility there. I just can't wait to see the front 3. I don't really care what the configuration is. We'll work it out over the year. They've got creative talent. They've got what Pepe does have, which I think is really interesting. He has the ability to not just score, run through, dribble, but he can create. So he's coming off that right-hand touchline and he's clipping that ball into the area that Aubameyang would love to run into. That'll be interesting, and vice versa. So that little diagonal there between the 2 of them, I can't wait to see. And certain games, Ozil's he's not shabby, is he, when it comes to finding passes. It's just the right games to make sure that we don't have anybody resting. So I'm going to be more positive with this. And although the Iwobi thing, and I still haven't worked it out, I'm so interested to listen to the Patreon podcast later. It does worry me slightly because I don't know how it happened. None of us were calling it. We know he wasn't there in the summer. He seemed to be a little bit late back. I wonder if there's a story there we're not aware of yet. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few days. That's the Academy golden boy gone. That's the one that everyone in the Academy looks to because he made it through. Arsenal will take a decision to take the money on him. That's interesting. Is that for the pathway for somebody else? Is that because they don't like something about him? That player is not easily replaceable from a positional point of view, and I agree with your point, Tim. It does leave the left side slightly light, and it does mean players like Aubameyang and Nelson will have to be out there. Nelson can do it easy, but Aubameyang, let's see. We know the numbers. He doesn't look so strong on the left. So it does leave a slight doubt there, but I'm going to stay positive. And yeah, I think that's a really strong mark. I'll give that a, I think that's an A. I think it's an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, so let's say we play 4-3-3 or 3-4-1-2, either one or whatever of those formations. It could be Lacazette at false nine with Aubameyang and Pepe running the channels. And that sounds pretty damn good to me. If one of those guys isn't available, then you go to one of the other forwards, which isn't a terrible group to choose from. I think you only really feel that weakness if you're regularly, routinely having to put two from that forward group out there. Yeah, go ahead, Clive.
Well, this is why I don't want to get trapped in one formation, because your players' availability almost tells you what you have to do to get the maximum from the group. And there will be occasions when people have knocks. There will be occasions when we play a 3. There will be when we go 2-1 or 1-2 up front, or we might go 3-4, 3-5-2. There's so many options, and we've got the talent to achieve it. What's really concerning is when we're forced into options because we're protecting and hiding talent. And that's where we were last season. So I'm excited to see us flip to a system, but with a far greater positive intention.
Paul, have we left any meat on this bone for you?
a little bit.
Okay.
I think I haven't been super excited about Aubameyang from the left, but Pepe will be a whole new dynamic down the right, putting balls in that may bring Aubameyang from the left a whole new energy for us. I think Ceballos, although we're not including him in this list of players, if we're grading that department, that kind of the forward line behind the striker, I think it's probably B+, given all the options, given that Ceballos may be a guy who can actually and is suited to sitting in that spot, doing the more creative joker role on the left while we have Pepe on the right when we don't use Aubameyang there. Or one of these young lads who hasn't yet proven enough steps up. I do like the look of Martinelli, but that's a lot of projection. But somebody like that might just step forward and take the 1/3 of games that Aubameyang doesn't start. And I think Clive makes a great point, which is this could just be a year for those young lads coming off the bench very often on that left-hand side, filling in that spot. There's 3 lads who could come on there, and one of them could step forward at some part during the year. But Ceballos needs to get a lot of game time, it would seem, and he won't always get that in the 2 pivot spots.
That's an interesting point.
I actually think he's a good fit for that left spot. The kind of he's not like any of these players, but he brings some of what a Nasri or a Rosicky or one of those guys can bring over on that other side with Pepe on the right.
That's actually a really interesting point. So, all right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and punt on this one again and say it's a B+. We all agreed that it was A+ for the strikers, right? Does anyone have anything to say on that? They're just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So then let's get into the prediction time now, and we'll start to speed through towards the end here. But first things first, let's do some player predictions. Who's your breakout player? So, Paul, when I say breakout player, I don't just mean a young player who impresses. It could be a player who is already an established player but has a season that surpasses expectations, that goes up a level, someone who becomes a big feature in the squad and has a big season who maybe we wouldn't have seen it coming. So, maybe not Aubameyang unless you think he's going to score 60 goals. Who do you predict to be the player who really breaks out?
I'm glad I went first.
Yep.
It has to be Willock. He has I mean, you could say breakout. A lot of people are projecting onto him at this stage. So if it were before preseason, this would be a really brave pick for the breakout player. But he is the guy with the most travel here between what he did last year and what he does this year. But it's a very crowded space. I mean, if we have two central midfielders, he's going to have a job getting in there. But the weird thing is we have a lot of good midfielders now. I think if you took Wilk out of there, you'd still say we had a strong midfield. And yet you can look at him and say, but hang on a second, he does stuff none of the others do. His running, his power, his ability to drive forward, the box-to-box nature. He's the only midfielder we have who is as brave in the box as Ramsey was. So you could see a path to him getting, maybe not being the starter, but getting many starts and a lot of coming on at 60 minutes or 65 minutes. Look at the number of games we played last year where we looked dead on our feet or lifeless or whatever. What are you going to do as Emery? You're going to say, are you going to subtly change central midfielder? Or are you going to say, I'm going to give fucking Willock a go to see if he can drive down the middle of these bastards and get some energy going here? So it'll be Willock.
Yeah, and already getting excited for his breakout season is the dog, I guess.
Yeah, Klaus.
Okay. Klaus voted for him too.
Loves
Tim,
him.
who's your breakout player?
Guendouzi. So not just because this is what I want to happen. I do think by the end of the season he'll have Xhaka's spot. I think the way that they've been playing in the last couple of friendlies, he's kind of already doing Xhaka's job in terms of picking the ball up from the back four. And yeah, I think he will he was the breakout player of last season, I think. But I think he'll nail down the starting 11 position. It's weird actually. Like a lot of Arsenal fans seem to be a little bit divided on him or don't quite appreciate what he does. I really, really like him because I think he does a bit of everything. And yes, he has some rough edges, but he looks to me like someone who's a really, really quick learner. And I think with David Luiz in there as well, I think Granit Xhaka becomes basically redundant, to be honest, with Luiz's level of passing. So I think Guendouzi will be in there with Torreira and just, like I say, modernise that midfield a little bit.
Yep, that's a good choice. So Clive, now that you have no one left to pick, who's your breakout player?
Well, I agree with everything Tim said, but I think, the Xhaka thing, I know it's going to happen, but it won't happen as quickly as we think it's going to happen. And I think there'll be pressure in games. And I just think these guys are still very, very young. If it's a talent discussion, then you're absolutely, let's do it now, right? But there is more to football than just talent, right? So I suppose the player that I'm looking forward to, I think we forgot. I would have said Guendouzi as well, full disclosure, but the other guy is Torreira. I think there was a period last year around the Spurs game where he was as exactly what we wanted. He was everything. And he just ran out of legs and people have just forgotten about him. I think he transforms how we play. We don't have anyone that plays like him. And when he's good, he's impossible to take your eyes from. He literally is our playmaker by how he wins the ball, how he steals the ball, how he creates situations. He's going to create situations on transition. And we now have 3 forwards that two that absolutely live and die off transition. And so, with the pressing with Lacazette and Torreira, I think it's going to be a big difference to how we play and get the ball into forward areas. So I would have said Guendouzi because I'm a huge fan, but close behind him, I would say Torreira.
Okay, I have to pick someone now. Fucking hell. So I've got to pick a breakout player from the people you've left me with who really qualify as either being already quite excellent players or they're crap. So, I mean, am I allowed to pick Pepe? Can I pick Pepe as a breakout player?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, I mean, I think what he does is exactly what our attack missed. Exactly what we've lacked since Alexis left. His directness, his dribbling, cutting inside, taking a shot, or delivering an accurate ball in the final third, pulling defenders out of position. I mean, if all he does is cut in on his stronger foot, drag a central defender towards him, if he can play that little slid 2-yard ball to Aubameyang making the run behind the defender that moved, he'll get 25 assists this season. That's a joke, but you get my point. I just think it is tantalizing what he could be, and I will predict him to be my breakout player. But you know what? That's enough upbeat shit. Let's slide over to biggest disappointment. And Clive, I'll start with you. Who do you think, and again, not worst player, biggest disappointment, who do you think a player could be that might be primed for a season that underwhelms us? I'm
going to be controversial.
I love it when you go clickbait. Let's do it.
I'm going to be controversial, and I've got no grounds to say this. Oh God, I've just got to worry about Lacazette. I've got a little worry about him.
You know what? I was going to pick him.
Yeah, I've just got a little worry about him. I know there's lots of recency bias here, but I've just got a little worry about him. He is picking up a few knocks and where he is, and he still hasn't impacted the game away from home, and it's important that he does that. And so yes, at home, it's why he's probably one player of the year. He does a lot of good things at home, and he's fantastic. His work and his leadership, and he does two men's jobs. But to be a top striker, you got to do it away from home, and he's not doing it away from home. And so there's going to be more competition and more time having to share minutes and share games. And when he does that, he's not too happy. So I'm not saying he's going to be a poor player. I think it could be a challenging year for him, and he needs to step up to the mark to take us where we want to get to, you know. And so maybe it's a better description. I've got my eyes on him because he's very important for us, and there's more to come. And I don't think he should settle with what he's done so far. He needs to do more, and because we all know where we need to be, and he holds the key.
Yep. I mean, I don't think he'll be bad. That's not my point. But I think he is a player who has a very interesting role to play. I think Aubameyang has looked hot as shit this summer, and Emery's going to want to play him a lot, and he is an exceptional player. And I think Lacazette has to keep his level up, because the risk is there that if he doesn't keep his level up, Emery may start playing with one up top more often, and Lacazette could find himself on the bench, which I don't think he'd love. So we'll see. Tim, who's going to make us miserable?
So I'm thinking of two players, both of whom are academy players, and no one ever likes to hear that. All right, I've already said that I'm slightly unconvinced by Reece Nelson, and I don't quite think that he's going to be I don't think he's going to be absolutely terrible or anything, but I think a lot of people have just kind of assumed, oh, Reece Nelson's here, and there we go, there's going to be plenty of end product and he's going to be great. I still think there's a lot to iron out in his game, in terms of his technique, certainly, and wasn't really that enthused by the thing. I mean, hopefully he'll just learn from it, but wasn't really that enthused by what kind of happened at the end of his spell at Hoffenheim, where he was kind of disciplined by the coach and left out of a couple of games because his attitude wasn't right. But yeah, I'm not sure that attitude is so much my concern. I'm just not quite sure he's quite as good as we think he might be. And I think that might be borne out this season.
Well, I mean, the good news is we're not relying on him. So it would be a shame if that happened, but we're not relying on him. So we'll see. Paul, how about you? Who's going to disappoint us?
I can come up with a case for lots of people possibly disappointing us. I'm not locked into anybody who will. I do have this feeling with Torreira that he himself may start feeling overlooked in this midfield, that he's not getting, he came in, started playing for us at a point and then became a starter and then kind of drifted off as the season went on. He lacks some athleticism, and obviously size and speed. And depending on how we reconfigure, I do have this concern he'll look a little lost and be a little lost. He'll be a guy we we use for a specific role, but we don't want that role too often. We want to create, we want to push forward, and that the manager deems he's not truly a starting 11 player for him. He's more a tactical choice when we need that in the team, and he may start feeling a little less loved and start drifting away. So he's the one, kind of like you worried a bit about Lacazette. I worry a little that Torreira may feel a little squeezed and a little unloved, and it may show. It's
an interesting choice, right? Because we know he loves Guendouzi. He seems to love Xhaka, whether we disagree or not, and I kind of hope that he will move away from him. Ceballos has been promised a lot of playing time, and I think he'll get a lot of playing time. So yeah, it's a congested area, and there were some rumors swirling earlier this summer that he hadn't settled. He wanted to move on. He quashed them pretty quick, and there was nothing really to it, but it will be an interesting one to look at. If I have to pick one, and God, I hope I'm wrong. Obviously, we all hope we're wrong about this, but I'll say Socrates. We are relying on him to be the nailed-on number one anchor of our defense, along with Luiz potentially, and then Holding maybe when he gets back. But I think we may have overrated the season he had last season. I think he can be a little rash. I don't know that his positioning is great, and with VAR coming in, he's going to have to really watch it because he is a sort of master of the dark arts, got away with it at times. He won't get away with it in the VAR era. So I worry because if he regresses to the kind of season that Dortmund fans will tell you he had before he arrived at Arsenal, it could be really bad. And I don't know that his season last season was as good as we thought. He may have looked better by virtue of who was next to him at times. But if he has a disappointing season, I think we could see our defense be a big issue again. I don't know that anyone's expecting us to be Fort Knox back there anyway, so it doesn't matter. I was going to ask to predict best player. Let me just get this from you as a group. Is anyone picking anyone other than Aubameyang? I mean, you'd have to go pretty far to think of someone, right? We all want to say Aubameyang, yeah?
Yeah, if Bellerin was fit, I'd say he'd be in with a chance.
Yeah.
I guess it could be if not Aubameyang, who would it be?
Okay, yeah, let's do that. All right. All right, Paul rescues the podcast. This is what we call ideation, but normally it doesn't happen on mic, but sometimes it does. Paul, since you came up with a great idea, who is your best who do you predict to be the player of the season non-Aubameyang category?
Well, if somebody pips Aubameyang, all right, I have two thoughts. I'll go with Pepe for obvious reasons, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody can do it, he can. I have one or two other thoughts, but he's the one where he could end up doing everything Aubameyang does and a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah. Okay. Clive, who's your best non-Aubameyang best player?
Yeah, same. Pepe's the one. He's got the ability to be a superstar, and I mean the right to the very top. So we're talking one or two Spanish clubs in 3 years' time. And so let's hope it happens with us.
I think it's probably a year too soon for him because he'll have to adapt. But if somebody does it, I think it could be him.
Tim?
Yeah.
Right, to be different, because I kind of agree, I'm going to say potentially Ceballos.
Oh, yes.
Because, and don't get me wrong, it could go, I don't think I've ever seen him play. So it could go completely wrong, right?
And it's alone, yeah.
And it's alone, but I just feel like he really, really wants to get into the Real Madrid team. That's what he wants. And to do that, he is going to have an absolutely A-grade season. On top of that, according to everything I've kind of read, he just really, really sounds like the type of player that I think Arsenal have been looking for a little while. So if it comes off, I really think it could be Ceballos. I also think, as a really cheeky shout, that David Luiz. I think David Luiz. Look, this is the kind of guy he is, right? This one really, really could go either way. I think there's almost zero chance of David Luiz being a solid 7 out of 10 signing. It's either going to be brilliant or it's going to be awful. But if it's good, it will be really good. And for Arsenal, slightly conceding 10 fewer goals next season could take us a long, long way.
It'd take us a very, very long way. I mean, look, we've done this before. We went and got Sylvester from United, and he turned No, that's wrong. I take your point. I'm going to go ahead and pick Lacazette. Unlike Clive, who doesn't really rate the player, I have a lot of faith in him. What I would say is, look, there you go, stitched you up. What I would say is there is a scenario where he plays more of a Firmino-type role, and I have always said I don't know that he has those qualities, but maybe that strength in holding the ball up, that preternatural relationship with Aubameyang, he also develops it with Pepe. He winds up doing a lot more as the hub of the attack in the final third, gets a lot of assists. Maybe he only has the 12 or 13 goals, but also has 11 or 12 assists, and just all around is the grease in the wheel. So I think non-Aubameyang category, I know he was our player of the season last season, although for me, it was always Aubameyang. I think it could be him again. And with VAR coming in, this is important. There's just going to be more penalties this season. There just are, which means Arsenal might even get 2. But if we get a bunch of penalties and he's the penalty taker, suddenly you can inflate your goal scoring numbers a lot. So he might have 11 non-penalty goals and 6 penalties and finish the season with 17 goals and 10 assists or something. So he could be really important for that reason as well. We'll finish with this. We'll just do a quick around the table prediction of where you think we're going to finish all comps. So Tim, I'll start with you on this one. League finish, Cup finishes, European finish. Yep.
Okay, Premier League 4th by a point.
Love it. At whose expense?
Chelsea and United.
I would take that. And what about the Cups? Yep.
I predict nothing in either of the domestic cups because we'll throw our lot in with the Europa League again because it's kind of slightly less of a lottery because we really should be going to the latter stages. I'm going to say semi-final though, and some unforeseen team is going to drop out of the Champions League and knock us out.
Interesting. Okay, I mean, to be fair, that absolutely could happen, and if it meant that it helped our league performance, I could almost grudgingly take that. Paul, what about you?
So I think we're favourites for a couple of spots here. I think we're favourites for 4th, but we got 2 competitors for that spot. So probability-wise, I'm bracing myself for 5th. So I'm saying 5th, even though I think we'll be slightly better than Chelsea and United. For Europa League, I think we lose in the final, just for fun. And for the Cups, who the hell knows? We'll get knocked out in the semis.
Make a prediction. Semis?
Yeah.
Of both?
Yeah.
So a final, 2 semis and a 4th place? Or did you say 5th?
5th.
5th. You son of a bitch. Okay, another season in the Europa League, according to Paul. I always knew that optimistic thing that you put on is just a show.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But this is a show, so technically you should be doing it now. Clive, help us.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to come 3rd. I think Chelsea are developing a team this year, and that will have high points and low points, but I don't think they're going to make the top 4. I think Spurs, they've got some potential issues around the corner regarding their squad and freshening their squad. They've had a couple of additions, but one I don't think is a true first 11 player, and the other 2, and Dembele looks good, but Lo Celso, I think that's going to be an interesting one. So let's see how that goes. But I don't think they're freshening up anywhere else, and I think there's problems with Dele Alli. And Manchester United have got no midfield. If Scott McTominay is holding your midfield together with Matic and Fred, and you're relying on Paul Pogba, then
who has openly stated he does not want to be there.
They don't want to be there, and there's nothing else there. There is nothing else. And yes, they got some speed up top, and they've taken out a centre forward. I think for a club of their size, they're actually doing an Arsenal of maybe 2 years ago by just being incomplete in what they're doing, throwing big money at certain areas, big wages at goalkeepers. I mean, it's just not clever. It's not smart. So I do see Arsenal on the up curve. I'm so impressed with how we've operated in this summer window. We've ended up in a very good place, and I think there's a inner confidence in the club that we're heading in the right direction. If the fans can allow it to permeate and just build, I think we're in for a really good season. Europa League winner for definite.
Europa League winners. Did you give me my domestic cups?
Don't care about them, mate. Honestly, I really don't. The Europa League is almost like the domestic cups, if you see what I mean, in the early stages, and we'll use those squads for those. The League Cup all depends on your draw. Make sure you're out of it before the semi-final. That's the most important thing. But if you do go all the way in the League Cup, you better win it. Otherwise, it can hurt your season. So I want to be out of it before the semi-final. And the FA Cup, it messes up with the later European competition, so not interested. We didn't end the season well last year, so it's all about. It has to be top four. We've got some bills to pay in a year or so's time, and Europa League, it just comes with our stature in the competition, with our budget, etc. We're going to get to the last four, so let's see what happens at that point.
Okay, I'll say we finish third. I think Spurs will come fourth, and Chelsea and United. Oh, Paul, you want to do it real quick?
Yeah, I got to change my vote to fourth. I just think there's. Statistically, blah blah blah. I think energy-wise, how we're lining up. No, I think we're all committed to fourth, and that's the summer we had and what Raul did and Edu. I think that's enough to push us to make the difference. I think we come fourth.
I have us as third. I think Spurs are going to fall. I think Spurs are getting ready to be Spursy. I'm not sure Pochettino wants to be there anymore. He's warring with Levy. I think Kane's ankle is fucked. I think there's a problem with Dele Alli. I don't think they have fullbacks. I don't know that their midfield is complete. Can Son have the same kind of season he had last season? I'm not sure. Eriksen might still go before this window closes. All in all, I think they could be poised to fall. And we know that Pochettino has had a hard time getting his team to perform all season long. They had a huge disappointment at the end of last season, getting to the Champions League final and not getting it done. And I think if you're a Spurs player, you start to wonder, what's the goal? What are we really after? And I think Chelsea and United are just a mess. So that's not to say that we're going to be head and shoulders above any of them. I think it is a limbo competition, and I think we will just be slightly better than those teams. The Cups, FA Cup quarters, League Cup semi, and I say Europa League semifinal, roughly there. My hope this season, and I'm going to give you guys each a chance to say this as we say goodbye. My hope for this season is that Unai Emery wears the big shoes, that Unai Emery feels like the big man. The club backed him. They gave him the players he needed. Maybe not 100,000%, but more than has been done in recent windows. He has a squad that can go get top four. That's the mandate, get us back in the Champions League. I hope he has the courage and the conviction to pick a style that's closer to what he wants to do, to really... have that style imprinted on the team early so that we look more coherent throughout the season. But more than anything, I hope he has the courage to throw a game if he has to play the kids in the FA Cup if that's what he thinks he needs to do, because we got an FA Cup tie midweek and we've got Spurs at home on the weekend or something. I'm picking that out of my ass, but you know what I mean. I hope he has the courage to play the kids in the group stage of the Europa League. I hope he has the courage to rotate for the early knockout rounds in Europe. I hope he has the courage to manage the team like a guy who has the job and has been backed and not try to win every game. I mean, this summer there were times where I'm like, good God, he really wants to win even the preseason games. And I get that mentality. But you know what, Unai? You can't win 70 games in a season. You can't. None of these teams can. So pick the competitions you want to really win, manage the team that way, and print your style on them. I'm curious to see how Emery does in this second season now. He's been backed. He's got a squad that looks ready to accomplish the goals we need to accomplish. Let's see what he does. So for me, it's all about Unai now. Clive, what's the big thing you're looking for this season?
Well, yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think what I'm impressed about is the people behind the club seem to be working in the same direction. And I think that will filter. I think it's filtered through to the fan base already. And it's not just the signings, it's how it was done and the type of players they're going for. I mean, I do like the change in dynamic. I really do. I do like the clever thinking. I do like the recovery move of Luis. I mean, that's a brilliant recovery move from a dire situation. I was always a bit more patient with the manager. I quite like his tactical nous. We fell off a cliff towards the end of the game after that Dubai trip, funny enough. I just think that interrupted our flow. We'd never done it before. And when we came back from there, I thought we would kick on, and we actually went the other way. And I just think just unexplainable, some of those performances around that period, and it's just a shame because I think he did a genius job with what he had. But now he's got more of what he wants. The club have given him more tools to work with. So you're a coach, my son. So coach this team. Make sure they're ready. Make sure they're prepared. Make sure they're going with the right attitude to get the results that we need. There's a little window there, Elliot, with Chelsea in the development year, which could go either way, and other teams not developed. So I think, just do that. One direction, common goals. I think we're starting to see the club come back to what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, the summer leaves us with a lot to be encouraged about. Tim, what's the thing you're most looking forward to seeing this season?
Excuse me. I think Nicolas Pepe, just because we really, really need that type of player, and I think we have done for certainly since Sanchez left, but possibly even before that. But I'm also I'm really looking forward to seeing David Luiz because I'm just massively curious about how it's going to turn out. And I'm also I think, to be more specific and group something together, I do think it's the young players that I'm the most excited about. And it's not because I think they're all going to be like Fabregases or Messis or anything like that. But, I've said on this podcast for a while, for a couple of years, that I think smart squad management is when you have academy players filling out squad roles. So players like Maitland-Niles, Willock, I think that, I really like Joe Willock. I think he'll be good. But I just think for me, as much as I've expressed some doubts about Reece Nelson, give me Reece Nelson rather than spending 17 million on Lucas Perez any day. Give me Joe Willock instead of Mohamed El Neni any day. I think this is good. I worried at the beginning of the summer that all of the talk of the academy was going to be, oh my God, they're all going to be starting every week. And actually the squad we've kind of purchased now shows, I think, that that's not going to be the case, that hopefully there'll be a nice balance where they'll play and they'll get Europa League games and they'll be on the bench and they'll come on for the last 20 minutes, but we won't be entirely dependent on them. And I think that's a really good way forward. And I think, again, that's coming way too late. We either skewed things and went far too much towards youth, and then in the last few years we've kind of neglected it a bit. I think a good squad has that balance of young players, that might just sit on the bench and make up the 18, but I think that's quite smart. And look, if we just sold Iwobi for 35 million, if one of them becomes a star, absolutely fantastic. If we get another Bellerin or something like that, great. But even if we don't, then I think we got some valuable squad players there, and hopefully a more sensible, balanced squad build.
Yeah, I think that's something worth looking forward to. Paul, you have anything different to add? What's your big exciting moment of the season to come? Thing that you're most excited for?
Well, Tim kind of touched on real squad depth, especially across the midfield and the attack, so that we don't run out of steam in the run-in. But as he mostly covered that, I'd go with a reconfigured midfield, the fact that we can have a rocking and rolling, running the game, control possession, lots of options. Just being able to... I loved Ramsey, but I think a clearing out of that space there, we still have the issue with Xhaka. So either we find a new partner from that balances him out, or we rotate based on game state. But just having a midfield that Arsenal has a midfield that other teams look up to, which we haven't had for some time.
Well said. Before we get out of here, I'm going to add one more thing I'm looking forward to, and that is talking to all of you, fine gentlemen, about the Arsenal again. Oh. It is one of the great privileges of my week, of my day, to interact with you, to talk to you, to get your thoughts, and to be associated with you and this podcast. And that goes for Scott as well, and everybody involved in it, including everyone listening. It really is a pleasure. I remember when we started the pod, and it was just a chance to talk to Paul and then eventually Tim and Clive about Arsenal. And now there are so many of you that join the conversation, and whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or through emails or on Discord, if you're a patron, we've just, I think, built a community of people that have a lot of great things to say about Arsenal, and it means the world to me. So on behalf of my podcast mates, I would like to thank you and say that I look forward to sharing this season with you again. So I promise there will be no more earnest moments in this podcast. We still have Scott coming up, but Paul's on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
Tim is on Twitter at Stillberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure.
Clive's on Twitter at Clive PAFC. Thank you, Clive.
Well said, my son.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Scott's coming up. He will give his predictions and tell you what his model thinks. I warn you in advance, his model sucks and we hate it. But we're gonna hear from it anyway. He'll also grade the different departments of the team. So we'll take a little break, play a little music, come back with Scott. Stay with us. More coming up right after this. All right, now that all the people who have no data or information to base their opinions on have said all their wrong things, we've got the person on to say all the right things. His name is Scott. You can find him on Twitter at _that_crab. Hello, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeehaw, indeed. What a summer. Holy shit.
Woo.
What a summer.
It's gone by so fast.
Yeah. I mean, it's been fun. I mean, just real quick, superficially, did you enjoy this window? I found it tremendously entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so used to, some of the previous windows where it felt like things, Arsenal would not be able to get things over the line. So it's quite a surprise to actually see deals get completed and pretty much all of the big holes at least somewhat be addressed. So I think it's been pretty successful. Okay,
so I want to get you on record with a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I want to go through the squad. I'm throwing this at you unprepared. You didn't know I was going to do this, but we're going to do this. We're going to go through the departments, and I want you to give me a letter grade, American-style letter grade, A through F, for each department. So goalkeepers, let's just say Leno and Martinez, letter grade for the goalkeepers?
I mean, I think that's a pretty solid B plus-ish range. I mean, I don't know if I fully expect Leno to be as good as he was last year at shot stopping, but I mean, I think that was a positive surprise. I don't think, as long as, Leno plays in the most important games, I don't think there's going to be a huge downgrade from last year. And, it's possible that, maybe there'll be an upgrade with Leno playing more over, the important games or check.
Okay. I want to do the defense as two departments. So let's do fullbacks. Tierney, Bellerin, Cola, Nacho, Maitland-Niles.
So I think, again, that's probably a B. I think, again, we're probably looking at an improvement over last year. I don't know exactly how injured Tierney is and when he'll actually be able to step in, but I think that if he's got working legs and can run and do both, I think that should probably be an upgrade over, Nacho, who can really only do one thing, and Kolak, who can only attack. So I think that probably is an addition. Bellerin's the same. Hopefully, when he comes back, he will continue to be the same. I think Maitland-Niles will have growing pains, but he will hopefully be better than last year. So I think overall, slight improvement on fullbacks.
I think if you told me that Tierney and Bellerin would each play 30 Premier League games, we have an A- to an A fullback core, and I'm basing that on seeing Tierney play precisely 0 times, so I could be way off there. The issue, of course, is how much they will play, and once you get into the backup options, if you're talking about Tierney and Bellerin playing 10 Premier League games, they just can't stay fit, you have a problem. All right, center backs. Socrates, Luis, Holding, Chambers, and for the time being Mustafi, but let's assume he's going. Those 4, let's just use those 4, and say Nacho is probably in that group more than he is in the left back group, is my guess. What do you give as a letter grade for the center backs?
I mean, going in, it was probably, an F. And so maybe we're now at a C-. Mm-hmm. I don't know. This isn't, it's not a great group, but I mean, I guess you kind of figure, if we're able to, as long as Mustafi doesn't have to start, if it's David Luiz and Socrates, or if it's, Holding and Socrates, or, any of those 3. I think as long as, we don't really have to dip into a 4th center back for, important games, I feel, this isn't a major issue. I mean, it's not, something that I'm going to feel super comfortable around, but it was better than what it was looking like a week ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think C- is probably right. I mean, look, Socrates has flaws, but it's sort of hard to know how bad his flaws are depending on who he's played next to. Luiz is the same. I mean, good, but we don't know what his flaws will look like in our system. I think the important thing is we were poised, like you said, to have an F, and a C minus. A C minus feels like an A plus compared to what it could have been. So it's an upgrade. Let's do midfield, and just I'm not going to name everyone because it's a bigger group, but I mean the core group looks like Xhaka, Guendouzi, Torreira, Ceballos, Willock. Would you agree that that's the core group?
Yeah, and I think that is the core group. I think that's a solid like B plus. I mean, I think that's a pretty good strength. There's lots of rotation options. I think even if you get past the first couple of choices, you still feel pretty good about the names that we can put out. So if we're going to start with primarily 2 people, I mean, we've got 5 people for 2 spots. I mean, I think that feels like a good amount of depth, and to be able to cover the number of games that Arsenal have. So I think that feels pretty good. I mean, it's not. I think we're probably just below the the elite teams in the Premier League, but I still think it's a solid B plus.
Yeah, I mean, I might go more like a B minus. Here's what I would say: Willock had an amazing preseason and looks like a superstar. If preseason winds up meaning nothing, and he is a little further behind than we think, then that changes my feeling about this group a little. Same with Guendouzi, who we think he will take another step forward, but he still has flaws in his game. What if he doesn't? Xhaka is limited. Like, we don't know what Ceballos is. We really don't. So I think we're projecting what this group could be based on thinking Ceballos will be awesome, based on Willock making the leap, based on Guendouzi progressing in his development. But like, if all those things wind up panning out not the way we expect, then you're looking at a lot of Xhaka Torreira again, and I think that's a flawed midfield. So I'm maybe a little bearish on it versus your prediction, but I still think it's in the B-ish range.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, I think you're right. There could be some, spots where, that's more of a B minus. But I think you still look at it, it's like, Guendouzi is our 4th option, and I think that he is a good player. So, I mean, I don't think that it's hard to say that this is a weakness of the team.
Yeah, sure.
At least.
Sure. I mean, it's like, I think a lot of the upside to the midfield could be an A, but you need certain things to break right. Like Willock makes the leap, and Guendouzi improves from last season, and Ceballos is as good as we hope he is. I mean, if you ask me who our best midfielder is right now, I'm going to tell you it's Ceballos, and I've never seen the guy play. So, I mean, there is some projection there. Let's move on to let's separate wide forwards from the striker group. So we'll say, now with the Will Be Going, those are Pepe, Mkhitaryan. Well, actually, I've kind of blown this. Where do you want to put Ozil? You want to put him as a forward or in the midfield?
I mean, so maybe we separated it so we have attacking midfielders and then strikers.
Okay, so the attack so if it's a 4-2-3-1, your 3 will include some combination of Mkhitaryan, Ozil, Martinelli, Nelson, maybe Saka, and Pepe. I don't think I'm missing anybody there. What do you think?
I think the Pepe move is something that is a big addition. I think that the loss of Iwobi is tough, but I don't think that he is irreplaceable. Especially now, you consider we got Pepe, who's going to give what he got. He's going to replace Iwobi's dribbles. He's going to replace his creativity, and he's going to have more end product. So I think that's probably an upgrade. I think hopefully we'll be able to see less Mkhitaryan this year, hopefully. And I wouldn't be too bummed about that. Maybe he does more of the Europa League. That left-hand side now is a bigger question mark. But, it's definitely the possibility that you might see, one of the strikers move
I think
there
you
to
will
fill that spot.
more often than not. That's the problem with grading this group is that it sounds, you list it and you're like, wow, there's a lot of weakness on the left side. But if we're being realistic, it will probably be Oba and Laka kind of alternating and rotating around, one of them being wide. They'll probably play together a lot.
Yeah, so I think you probably put this one at the B between B and a B plus. So I think you're probably there. Maybe like a 86.5. Like if we're grading out of 100.
And the strikers A plus.
Yeah, I definitely think that I would take Arsenal strikers up against anybody's in the leagues and feel pretty comfortable about it. You might be able to make an argument that City's Jesus and Aguero might be better, but other than that, I don't think there's anybody who has a better combo of strikers in the league.
Yeah, I look at it and I say, if every one of our perfect players could start, our ideal lineup, I'd put our fullbacks up against any other than Liverpool and City. I'd put our midfield up against any other than Liverpool and City. probably ahead of
I think
well,
Chelsea.
Spurs.
I think Chelsea's midfield is, I think Chelsea's midfield is, might be better. I think Jorginho, Conte, Kovacic is a really strong
At what though?
Choice of three.
At just holding the ball deep in midfield and doing nothing with it. Like I think they're going to struggle to progress. I think they're going to have the problem this season we had last season. I think ball progression could be a problem for them.
I think, between Kovacic and Jorginho, I think you have enough of a ball progressor between those two. And Conte, I think he still has the ability to basically be 1.5 midfielders.
Yes, that's true. Defensively,
so
anyway, yeah.
He might not be his, at his absolute peak where he was 2 midfielders, but I think he's still at least 1.5 midfielders.
So let's say we have, third best fullbacks, fourth best or fifth best midfield, depending on what you think of Spurs. I mean, adding in Ndombele. Probably
it's just I don't know who they pair Ndombele with. That's the only thing that's a question.
Third best wide forwards or fourth best, and then arguably the best strikers. I mean, you line all that up and you say, okay, that's a team for me that should be competing for the top 4, especially when you consider United and Chelsea, who are weak, have potential weakness not just in their lineup, but in their coaching positions. So let's get to predictions. Let's go to your model for a second before we just go to what your gut says. You posted a model, you tweaked it, and when you tweaked it the last time, we actually got worse. So let's talk about what your model has, but then address what the model is factoring in. So where does your model have us finishing in terms of percentages?
All right. So let me pull this up. So let me just quick kind of talk about how it works. So I did make some changes this year to how I had it done previously. So it's again still all using historical stats to be able to make my decisions. I don't have anything forward looking. So the model definitely doesn't know about, players coming in, players leaving. That stuff that hopefully will be captured as games are played. I did make some adjustments to make things a little bit more aggressive on, giving favorites, more of an opportunity to win games. Because that's when I went back and kind of looked at things. I was quite pleased on, how it predicted, but that was definitely one of the things that I did notice is that I under predicted likely events. And over predicted or under. Yeah. So I just was, on the ends, I was way undercounting, the probability of those things happening. So I went through and made some adjustments there. So overall, I have Arsenal, about the 5th best team, which I think is pretty close to right.
We know.
Right,
all right. So we know
Chelsea and
it's
Manchester United.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. So is the team that's ahead of them Chelsea and Spurs?
Yeah, so Manchester City is obviously the number 1 team. Then there's a gap, and then there's Liverpool. Then there's Tottenham, who's a slight ahead of, and then Chelsea, Arsenal, United.
Okay, so why is Chelsea ahead of Arsenal in this model?
It's all based on what they were a better team last year, so it still predicts them to be a better team. It doesn't know about the changes, the changes in the coaching, the changes in the players that have gone out. It doesn't know about the transfer ban. So I don't expect there to be a giant gap, but I still think Chelsea is a fairly talented team.
Why? I don't see
Why?
it. I don't think they're good. Why are they good? What are they good at? Where are they going to score goals? That's a bad team. If you took those shirts off and put it on another team, you'd say that's a mid-table team.
I don't know. So I still think they have a solid, center back or solid defense. I think that, they'll be able to do that. Their fullbacks probably aren't as great. At least Azpilicueta is not going to be as good as an attacking fullback, but I guess that balances out with, the drunk guy on the left, Alonso.
He can't defend. How do you use Alonso?
No, exactly. So you're gonna have three defenders and one guy going forward. So it'll still be, I think that's a decently balanced, back line. I really like their midfield. I think that the attacking, whatever they can put on attack, it's going to definitely be a downgrade over last year. But again, the model doesn't know that. I think that realistically putting in, I don't know how much I would change that, but again, I can't systematically do this without guessing. So if I was betting on things, I probably wouldn't bet on things that the model projects for Chelsea.
I mean,
there's just too many unknowns right now.
If you give me a team that staggered its way to 4th with a really good coach and the best player in the league, and take the best player in the league off that team, give them a terrible coach, and replace the best player in the league with some promoted kids and a young American, I don't see how that team is better. They're definitely worse, and they don't have a much margin for error to be worse.
I would actually probably make the argument that the upgrade from Batshuayi and Abraham is might be better than what they got from Giroud and Higuain.
I don't see how that's possible. I really don't. I mean, Tammy Abraham has never ever done it at this level, and neither has Batshuayi.
Batshuayi, he produced at Dortmund. He produced in League One. He actually was pretty good on Crystal Palace before last season too. So I think that he's actually a very solid player. I think Tammy Abraham is probably one of the best products in the league. He's young. I think that he's going to be good. And they were bad at striker last year. I mean, your favorite guy, Olivier Giroud, started games for them. This is not, that's a fairly easy bar to clear. It's like the Arsenal and center backs. It's not, a huge bar to be able to improve on that. I think if they had kept Morata, they'd probably be looking better. I'm not trying to say that they're going to be, awesome or amazing, but I think that, it's definitely possible that they will still be in the fight for, top six. I don't see them significantly, worse than, United. I don't see them significantly worse than, Arsenal.
I guess what I would say is also, where do you rate the fact that they have a very, very, very bad coach?
I mean, I would definitely, it's that same thing with United. That's, the numbers all look good, but how much do you discount the coaching factor?
Okay, well, this is not a Chelsea pod, so I guess it just annoys me because I want Chelsea to be bad, and I hate that you don't agree with me that they're bad. Can you just tell me they'll be bad? Just pat me on the head and tell me they'll be bad?
I think that they will not be good.
Okay, thank you. So your model has us as the fifth best team. In terms of the variance, the likelihood that we could finish higher up, I mean, what does it give us, a 25% chance?
Yeah, so I have Arsenal at 36.4% for the top four.
Well, that's not bad.
So,
because you might hear that and say that's not
just
great.
Under 40%.
But then you realize all right, United have some chance, Chelsea have some chance, and then there's always some chance, even if it's just 10% chance, 5% chance that some random breaks into the top four.
I have United at 25%.
Okay, well that's good. I like that. All right, so then let's put the model to one side. And the model does not factor in changes in personnel, right? It has no way to do that. So losing Hazard, getting a worse coach, none of that goes into the model, correct?
That's right. So it is just looking at, the last 3 years of data. Then I do have some stuff to kind of adjust for, trends of how the data is going, kind of projecting into this season. But, it doesn't know about a lot of these changes and, upgrades and downgrades in the model, in the transfer market.
All right, prediction time. Let's do it. Where do you predict Arsenal to finish in the league this season?
I'm gonna say fourth place. I think there's a possibility that they might be able to get ahead of Spurs, but I think fourth place is probably where I really expect them to do. I think if Unai Emery doesn't get fourth place, I think that he needs to go, because I think with this team, how much money has been spent, he's been backed. Pretty much every.
He's been backed.
Exactly. They've addressed every need. Maybe they didn't get the best players in the spots that they needed, but they at least improved, I think, in all of the areas that they needed to improve. They spent a ton of money. I think that's got to be the expectation.
Okay, and then last but not least, who do you have as the player of the season?
Player of the season, I think it's going to be. I hope it's going to be Aubameyang again. I mean, I think that he was fantastic. He looked fantastic in preseason. He is, an amazing player, and I hope he gets another golden boot and really propels Arsenal.
He's been so much fun, and I think with Pepe in there and dribbling, creating space, it could be really exciting. It's not an easy start to the season, and we're not at full strength, so we'll have to maybe wait to see the best of this team. But I think it could be a more fun season. Do you think at a minimum it'll be a more fun Arsenal team to watch?
I really hope so, because I think that we addressed the needs that we needed, so I think we can do more of the 4-2-3-1, get 4 attackers on the field, and really go at teams. I mean, if you asked me if it was if we're going to concede less goals than last season, I wouldn't be confident in saying no. I hope so. I think that maybe we'll be closer to 45 instead of 50 goals, so a pretty decent little improvement. But I think we'll score more goals. or at least, have better numbers to back up our goal scoring, so we won't have so much error in our numbers.
Yeah, well, not a lot of time left to find out what's going to happen. The season is kicking off. Let's hope it is a good one.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, no, not for us. Not for us.
No.
But yes, it is starting. And by the way, that means if you're doing fantasy football this season, if you're one of our patrons, for example, doing that, get your lineup set. Scott's on Twitter at _that_crap. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review to start the season. We've had so much fun this summer. A lot of great content coming out, a lot of episodes and stuff. Before the season starts, don't forget YouTube, Arsblog, and myself are actual faces on camera. I'm cheating on Scott, but don't worry, Scott will be back for the future shows. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be a great season, and Arsenal's going to win the fucking league, and we're going to win the Europa League, we're going to win the FA Cup and the League Cup, and it's all great until Sunday when they make us miserable again. But you know what? We're here through the highs, we're here through the lows, and we're so thrilled to have you here with us for a wonderful season that starts on Sunday with Arsenal 10, Newcastle 9.